It all started that weekend when my daughter Susan came home from college. We were sitting at breakfast when she suddenly said, "Dad, I'm serious. I think there's a ghost in the house." She was standing in the kitchen doorway wrapped in a blanket like a burrito. Her hair was a mess and her face looked dead serious. I already had my first cup of coffee in hand when she dropped that little bomb. "A ghost?" I let out a half laugh. "You sure you weren't dreaming?" "I wasn't sleeping," she said. "It was around 3 a.m. I just couldn't fall asleep. I kept hearing stuff, like breathing, or maybe groaning, and this weird scratching from inside the walls." Megan, my wife, didn't even look up. She was at the stove, flipping eggs like this was any normal morning. "Probably rats," she said flatly. "Rats?" I raised an eyebrow. "We've never had rats." Megan shrugged without turning around. "It's an old house, Bill. Wooden floors, cracks in the basement. God knows what lives down there, wouldn't be surprised." I hadn't heard anything, but I'd been sleeping like the dead for weeks. Chalked it up to work burnout and actually felt kind of grateful I was finally getting solid sleep for once. I looked back at Susan. She'd taken a seat at the table, still curled in her blanket. She cradled her coffee mug with both hands like it was the only thing keeping her warm. "I know what I heard," she said quietly. "It wasn't rats. Someone was breathing, like right behind the wall." "Oh, for God's sake," Megan sighed. "How many horror movies have you watched this semester?" "I'm not making this up, Mom." I stood there, quiet, just watching the two of them. Yeah, it was an old house. Big, built in the late 1800s, used to belong to Megan's great-great-grandfather. High ceilings, creaky floorboards that groaned if you even looked at them too hard, and pipes that whined like something dying when the water kicked on. "Maybe it was just the wind," I muttered. "Still, what, you gonna set up ghost traps now?" Megan smirked. I chuckled. "Rat traps, just in case." But something about the way Susan looked at me, pale, tired, wrapped up like she didn't feel safe in her own home, it stuck with me. I didn't say anything more right then, but I didn't laugh it off either. Not really, because deep down I already knew she was right. I just didn't want to admit it. No rat ever ended up in those traps, not a single one. But that wasn't the weirdest part. Things started going missing. At first it was small, my aftershave disappeared. I looked everywhere. The bathroom cabinet, my gym bag, even under the sink. Nothing. I figured maybe I misplaced it somehow, but that's not like me. I don't lose things. Ever. I put stuff back exactly where it belongs. Megan even teases me for being too obsessive about it. Then it was my navy sweater, the one Megan gave me for Christmas a few years back. Thick knit, dark blue, my favorite. I know I saw it in the closet just a few days ago when I was looking for a shirt to wear with my gray suit. I remember seeing it, touching it even. Now, gone. I walked into the kitchen while Megan was rinsing out a coffee cup. "Hey, did you wash my blue sweater?" I asked casually. She didn't turn around. "Nope, I haven't touched any of your stuff. Wasn't it in your closet?" "Yeah, not anymore. I tore the place apart. It's not there. And my aftershave's gone too." She shrugged like it was no big deal. "Maybe you misplaced them? You've been stressed lately. Work's been killing you. Probably just slipped your mind." "I don't lose my stuff," I said firmly. She didn't argue, just dried her hands on a dish towel and walked out of the kitchen without another word. I stood there for a minute, staring at the table, this uncomfortable feeling settling in my gut. It was only my things that were disappearing, not random stuff, not kitchenware, not Megan's books or Susan's clothes, just mine, and not junk either. Personal items, man's things. A part of me started thinking, maybe someone was sneaking in, a drifter, a squatter. Maybe someone who figured out a way into the house and was hiding, somewhere in the walls, or the attic, or the basement, someplace we wouldn't look unless we had a reason. That same night, after Megan went to bed, I grabbed a flashlight and headed to the basement. I checked everything. Shelves were untouched. Dust was thick, undisturbed. Cobwebs still clung to the corners like gauze. Even the same fat brown spider was still squatting in the far corner, exactly where I'd seen it last time. Nothing looked out of place. Then I went up to the attic, pulled down the stairs, climbed up slow, quiet. Same silence as always. Just old boxes, stacks of dusty magazines, a broken heater leaning against the wall. Smelled like dry wood and time. No signs of anyone. No footprints. No moved boxes. No scratch marks. Nothing. I went back down, checked every lock, every window. All the doors were secure. No broken glass. No forced entry. And still, something felt off. Like the house was holding its breath. Like someone was here, watching, listening. I couldn't explain it, and I didn't say anything to Megan or Susan. But that night, I didn't sleep as soundly. Not even close. The next morning, I got up earlier than usual. Something in me just wouldn't let me sleep. I poured a cup of coffee and started walking through the house. Quiet, careful, like I was expecting to catch someone in the act. I checked every door, every window, took another look at the traps I'd set. Still nothing. No rats, no sign of anyone or anything out of place. Until I got to the guest bathroom. I stopped dead in the doorway. There were shaving remnants in the sink. Tiny stubble hairs, just a few but enough to notice, and a faint white streak across the mirror. The kind you get when you wipe steam or splashes off with a bare hand. That thin, cloudy trail. I hadn't shaved in 2 days. And when I do, I clean up. Always. It's automatic. I don't leave a mess. Ever. Megan says I'm obsessive, and she's not wrong. I leaned over the sink, touched the cold porcelain, just stared at it. That wasn't my mess. That wasn't me. That was another man. In my house. I felt something tighten in my chest, like a steel wire pulling taut. My jaw clenched, my grip on the sink got harder. Later that morning, Megan came back from the store, bags in her hands. I didn't wait. There's shaving stubble in the guest bathroom, I said, flat, calm. Her hand froze on the bag. She held it midair for a second, then slowly set it down on the counter like nothing was wrong. What? Shaving. In the sink. Someone's been in there. She gave a quick laugh. Short, like she didn't buy a word of it. Maybe even like she was offended I said it. You're serious? Dead serious. She narrowed her eyes just a little, like she couldn't believe where this conversation was going. Maybe you shaved and forgot to clean up? You've been exhausted lately. Honestly, this is getting a little out of hand. I don't forget that kind of thing, I said quietly. You know I don't. That mess isn't mine. She let out a breath and brushed a few strands of hair from her face, annoyed. Check the outdoor security cameras, Bill. No one's come near the house. And I'm not bringing any men in here when you're gone, so maybe stop accusing me of something that sounds completely insane. Fine, I said. Let's check them together. We sat down in front of my laptop. I pulled up the footage archive. Day after day, night after night. Sunrises, darkness, motion alerts, every single clip. Front porch cam, side windows, backyard. I watched them all, one after the other. And just like she said, nothing. No unfamiliar figures, no footsteps, no man slipping through the shadows, no one entering the house. She leaned back in her chair when it was over, arms crossed, that little smirk curling on her lips. See, she said, you're being paranoid. You probably shaved half asleep and forgot, and now you're blaming me for it. No, I said slowly. I didn't forget. I know what I do. I know what I clean up. That mess wasn't mine. She gave a small laugh, sharp like glass. So what then? We got a roommate I don't know about? Some squatter ghost who breaks in to trim his beard? Maybe someone got a hold of a spare key, I said. Comes in when we're not here. She pointed toward the screen. Then why didn't the cameras catch it? She looked at me then, really looked, with that mix of frustration and pity people give when they think you're losing your grip. And I didn't say another word because she was right. And that scared me more than the stubble in the sink. I sat there long after she left the room, the laptop screen still glowing faintly in the dark. My coffee was cold. My chest felt tight, like something was slowly pressing down on me. Was I slipping? Was I starting to forget things? Was I breaking down? I'd never been the guy who loses track of anything. But now, there were cracks. And yet, deep down, something didn't fit. Something was off. I could feel it in my bones, in the quiet spaces of the house. This wasn't about memory. This wasn't about stress. Something was wrong, and I wasn't crazy. Not yet. That evening, I was too shaken to even pretend I was okay. Dinner was on the table, but I didn't touch it, didn't even look at it. I just sat there, lost somewhere far off. Come on, at least try a bite, Megan said softly, nudging the plate toward me. I shook my head. She didn't push. A moment later, she brought me a glass of orange juice, set it down in front of me like I was a sick kid. I stared at it, then picked it up and walked outside into the backyard. I stood there under the porch light, holding the glass, listening to the crickets. The air felt thick. Was I really losing it? My father had dementia at the end of his life. It came slow at first. Confusion, forgetfulness, but it didn't stay slow for long. I was too young back then to fully understand it. But now I wondered if it was happening to me. What if this was the start? What if I was forgetting things I'd done, misplacing objects I never used to lose, imagining messes that weren't there? Was I about to start forgetting faces? People? Myself? The thought gutted me. I stayed out there for maybe 30 minutes, long enough for gnats to fall into my drink and drown. When I finally went back inside, I poured the juice into the sink without a word. Megan walked into the kitchen a minute later. She saw the empty glass and gave me this quiet smile, like I'd just passed some kind of test. "Good," she whispered. Then as she walked past me, she added, "Come on, let's go to bed." That night I woke up suddenly. No dream, no noise, just snap, wide awake, like something had kicked me from the inside. The clock read 2:04 a.m. I lay there for a few minutes, waiting for my heart to stop racing. The house was completely still, quiet enough to hear my own breathing. But the bed beside me was empty. Megan wasn't there. I sat up, rubbed my face, tried to push down the unease. Maybe she couldn't sleep. Maybe she went to the bathroom or downstairs for a glass of water. I got up. The house was dim, shadows draped across the furniture. I walked through the kitchen, empty. Living room, dark and silent. Basement door, still locked. Even the back porch was empty. I stopped in the hallway. "Megan," I called out softly. "You okay?" No answer. Then I heard her voice, soft, barely there, like she was trying not to wake anyone. A gentle whisper. And then laughter, quiet, low, intimate. It froze me where I stood. I took a few steps forward, slow and careful, my ears straining. The sound wasn't coming from any room. It was coming from the wall. I turned toward it, reached out, laid my palm against the old wooden paneling. Cold. The sound came again. Hushed words, a murmur. Then another quiet laugh. Not from the living room, not from the kitchen, from inside. She was inside the wall. Megan knew this house better than I ever would. She grew up in it, ran through every hallway as a kid, hid in its corners during hide and seek, memorized every creak of the floor, every crooked beam in the attic. Her great-great-grandfather built it himself, back when people still added secrets to their homes. Hidden panels, hollow walls, places you wouldn't see on any blueprint. And she was talking to someone in there, inside the damn walls. It didn't take a genius to figure out who. The same person who shaved with my razor, who wore my sweater, who never showed up on the security footage. Because he didn't have to enter the house. He was already here, living inside. My wife was laughing with another man behind the wall, in my house, in the middle of the night, thinking I was asleep. And then it hit me. Hard, like something sharp and cold sliding down my spine. Why was she bringing me orange juice every night? Why did she always watch me drink it? Why had I been sleeping so deeply these last few weeks when normally I wake at the sound of a floorboard creak? What if she'd been drugging me? What if that juice wasn't just juice? But tonight, I didn't drink it, and she didn't know that. I stood there, forehead resting against the cold wooden panel. My fists clenched, my body shaking. But I didn't knock. I didn't scream. I didn't tear down the wall. I walked to the kitchen, pulled out the heavy cast iron pot from the bottom drawer, the big one we only ever use for holiday stews. I filled it with whatever I could find. Old bills, napkins, tea boxes, dry newspaper from the recycling bin, anything that would burn fast and hot. I grabbed the lighter from the junk drawer, and I lit it. The fire caught quick. Flames curled up and danced like they'd been waiting for the chance. I gripped the pot with 2 thick towels and lifted it, careful, steady. The smoke hit immediately, thick and bitter. My eyes stung. My chest tightened, but I carried that pot like it was a holy relic. I walked into the living room first, then the hallway. Moved slow, deliberate, like a priest swinging a censer, letting the smoke fill the air, letting it crawl through the house. Then I threw the doors open, all of them. Let the smoke travel, seep into the cracks, and I yelled, "Fire! Fire!" as loud as I could. Let it echo through the walls. Let it pull them out. This was the alarm they weren't ready for. I wanted to see their faces. I wanted them exposed, dragged out of the shadows into the light. I wanted them to crawl out of their filth like rats. And they did. I heard a rustle, fast, then a door creak, then a low, muffled thud like something heavy falling against an empty cavity of wood, and then a voice. Not hers, a man's, low, sharp, angry. "What the hell?" And then, footsteps, 2 sets, quick, panicked. I set the pot down in the hallway and waited. A few seconds later, Megan came flying out from behind the old cabinet, barefoot, tangled hair in her nightgown, and the look on her face said it all. One word, caught, and right behind her, him, tall, dark hair, face I didn't recognize. They both froze when they saw me standing there in the hallway. Dead silent, not moving. I didn't say a word. I wanted to see what she'd lead with. She didn't disappoint. "Bill, it's not what you think," she said, voice already trembling like she was winding up for a performance. "Oh yeah?" I said, keeping my tone steady. "Then what exactly do I think?" She swallowed hard, tugged the hem of her nightgown straight, buying time. "This is Tom," she said, gesturing toward him. "He's my stepbrother." I didn't respond, just stared at her. He's been in some trouble with the law, nothing serious, just dumb stuff. He had nowhere to go. He asked for help. "And hiding him inside a wall was your solution?" I asked, voice calm, level. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said quickly. "I knew you'd freak. Your brother's a cop, Bill. You would have turned him in," I finished for her, "because that's what people do with fugitives." She looked at me with wet, wide eyes, still playing her part like this was a soap opera, and she had a chance to win me back with enough emotion. I turned to Tom. He hadn't said a word, just stood there looking off to the side like a kid caught stealing from the liquor cabinet. He knew he'd been busted. He just hadn't figured out how deep yet. You know what really broke me? It wasn't that she brought another man into my house. It wasn't that he'd used my razor, worn my clothes, eaten off my plates. It wasn't even that he'd slept behind my walls while I slept in my bed. It was that she honestly thought I was dumb enough to buy that stepbrother story. 20 years of marriage. Not once had she mentioned a brother. Not once. And now here he was, crawling out of the walls like a goddamn rat. "So you're telling me," I said, stepping forward, "this is your brother, and he's been living in our walls for a month?" She nodded, lips trembling, still acting. I took another step, now just a few feet away. "You're right, Megan," I said quietly. "I don't tolerate criminals in my house." That hit. She flinched. "You're going to call the cops," she whispered, voice cracking. I didn't answer right away, just looked at Tom. His jaw was clenched tight, but his eyes, blank, empty. He'd already retreated behind them, and for the first time, I spoke to him. "Sleep in the guest house tonight," I said. "Tomorrow we'll figure out what happens next." Megan lit up like she just won something, like this was mercy. "Thank you," she breathed out like it meant something, like that was the end of it. Tom gave a slow nod, didn't look me in the eye. "I'll walk him out," she said quickly, grabbing his arm. "Sure," I said. I watched them disappear into the night, 2 shadows slipping through the dark, and I wondered, do they actually believe they got away with this? When the door shut behind them, I stood there in total silence, didn't move, didn't breathe, and then everything I'd been holding in cracked wide open. It wasn't loud, it wasn't explosive. It was like something tightening inside me, from my throat down to my gut, a quiet kind of pain, deep, dull, paralyzing, the pain of betrayal. I swallowed it down, pressed it into my chest, forced it to stay there. Every emotion, every violent impulse, every flash of heartbreak. I traded it for something else, rage. Not the kind that screams or throws punches or flips over tables. No, this kind was quiet, cold, methodical. This kind of rage doesn't lash out, it plans. What the hell was Megan thinking? That her little pet rat could live with us now? That this piece of shit in my sweater could crawl out of his hole, sit at my table, pour himself coffee from the same damn pot I use every morning? That they'd sit in the garden together, holding hands like teenagers while I broke my back at work? That we'd all sit down and watch baseball at night, me, my wife, and her lover? She really thought I was that weak. Then she never knew me at all. I was going to make sure she hurt just as much as I did. I didn't need to hit him, didn't need to scream at her. I needed one thing, to drag them both into the light so hard and fast they'd have nowhere to run. I sat down on the couch slowly, my fingers curled into a fist. My breath evened out. That was it. Game on. My turn. Out in the guest house, Tom pulled the door shut behind them and moved straight to the window. He peeked through the curtain, trying to see the house. There's no way he didn't notice. he said. We acted like idiots. He knows. He doesn't know anything, Megan said quickly. I know him. If he suspected something, he'd say it. He's not the type to keep it in. Tom turned around, his voice sharp. You saw the way he looked at me. He's not stupid. I'm telling you. He bought it, she muttered. I saw it in his eyes. The whole stepbrother act, it's garbage. Trust me, she said, stepping closer. He's not an idiot, but he still loves me, deep down. And he wants it to be a misunderstanding. He's clinging to that. I can use it. Tomorrow I'll talk to him. I'll clear up whatever doubts are left. Tom started pacing. I'll protect you, she said quietly. You know that, right? You matter to me, Tom. He sat down on the edge of the bed, jaw tight, breathing hard. This wasn't the plan, he muttered. This isn't how it was supposed to go. It's not over, Megan whispered. Not yet, but we have to be careful, especially now. He nodded slowly. Then she knelt in front of him and wrapped her arms around his waist, pulling him in close. When Megan came back inside, I didn't make a scene. Go to bed, I said calmly. I'm not going to sleep anyway. We'll talk in the morning. She nodded without a word and headed upstairs. I waited a few minutes. Then I went back to the wall, where they'd come out. The old cabinet wasn't even heavy. Barely took any effort to move it aside. Clearly, it wasn't the first time. Behind it was a narrow passage. I grabbed a flashlight from the drawer and crawled in. The air hit me instantly. Thick with dust, wood, and something else. Something warmer, something like life. I moved down the tight space slowly, crouched, my breath echoing off the walls. After a few yards, I found it. His room, if you could even call it that. A makeshift bed, blanket, old pillow. My navy sweater, the one Megan gave me for Christmas years ago, folded neatly at the edge like it meant something. On top of a box, 2 plates, from our wedding china. The deep blue-rimmed ones we never use. One still had scraps of food, the other, dried sauce. In the corner, a mug. My mug, our mug. I felt something turn in my stomach, like someone hadn't just broken into my house, but into me, into the private space of my life, and laid down roots without shame. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was living. I stood there for a long time, just looking, trying to breathe, trying to hold everything down. Then I pulled out a plastic evidence bag, put on gloves, the ones I keep in the tool drawer in the garage, and gently picked up the mug, the one he drank from. No one else had touched it. I sealed it. Before anyone woke up, before Megan or her little rat could speak another word, I was gone. I drove straight to my brother Rick's office. Rick met me in his office, like always. Same haircut he'd had since we were kids. Same uniform pressed so clean you could slice paper on the creases. Same expression like he was still looking at the punk teenager who once blew a speeding ticket and made him bail me out. I sat down across from him. My hands were shaking, and I hated that he could probably see it. What happened? Rick asked, concern starting to creep into his voice. You called me at 7 a.m. Is it Susan? No, I said. It's something else. I need to show you something. I pulled the mug from the bag. White ceramic, blue rim from our guest china set. I placed it on his desk like it was a piece of evidence in court. This was in our house, I said, in the space behind the walls where he was hiding. Who? Rick asked, already shifting into cop mode. His name's Tom, or that's what he told her. Megan says he's her stepbrother. Rick raised an eyebrow. She has a stepbrother. She doesn't, I said flatly. Not once in 20 years has she ever mentioned a single sibling. And now he's sleeping in our guest house, after spending God knows how long living in our walls. Rick stared at me. Just stared. Then he leaned forward. And you want me to run prints? Yes, I said. Run them, quietly. No reports, no paperwork, no official noise. I just need to know who he is. Please, Rick, just tell me what I'm dealing with. Rick didn't answer right away. Bill, he started. He slept behind my walls, I said, voice low. He used my stuff, ate off our plates. My wife, she let it happen. She hid him, lied to me. Rick, I need to know. My brother studied my face for a second longer. Then he gave a single nod. All right, he said. I'll run the prints. But if it turns out this guy's serious trouble, you tell me what you're planning. I promise, I said. A beat passed. First, I added, just find out who he is. After the station, I stopped at the store. Rick had told me exactly what to get. Small surveillance cams with live feed, the kind you can check from your phone. Discreet, easy to hide, the kind no one notices. I sat in the car, unboxed everything, got them synced up, and tested the signal. Everything was working. Then I called Megan. "I'm working late," I said, voice steady. "If you want, you can take Tom into town. He probably needs clothes, right?" She responded too quickly, too happy. "That's a great idea. We were actually thinking about it. He didn't bring anything with him." "Thank you, babe. Really. That helps a lot." "Text me when you're on the road," I said, then hung up. I hit the gas before the call even ended. I had to get home before they did, before anyone was there, while the board was still mine alone. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the driveway. Quiet, no car, they'd gone. Perfect. I got to work fast. The first camera went in the hallway, tucked beneath the wall clock. The second in the kitchen, hidden behind the spice rack. The third, in the guest house, behind the vent. The fourth, in our bedroom, facing the door. And the last one, near the old cabinet that led to the crawl space. I was just finishing the final setup when my phone lit up. Rick. I answered immediately. "What's up?" "I've got results," he said. "We need to talk. This isn't a phone conversation." "Is it serious?" A pause. Too long. "Come down," he said, "as soon as you can. And Bill? It's not her stepbrother." The pace of things wasn't just picking up. It was hurtling forward like a car with the brakes cut. And for the first time, I had to ask myself a question I'd been avoiding. Am I even ready to hear the truth? We met at a diner on the edge of town. Quiet, nothing fancy. Rick ordered a black coffee. I didn't order anything. My stomach was a knot. He set a folder on the table, but didn't open it, just looked at me. "You ready?" "Just say it," I told him. "I don't care anymore." He nodded. When he spoke, his voice was even. Flat. Clean, like he was reading out someone else's nightmare. "His name's not Tom, it's Richard Stanton. He just got out of a white-collar case. Financial fraud. Didn't do time. Cut a deal, turned on his partner. The company collapsed, assets were frozen, property seized. Wife left him, took the kids. He's unemployed now. No bank accounts, lives on cash." I sat there watching Rick, but seeing through him. It didn't shock me. It gutted me. But it didn't shock me. "And he showed up at your house?" Rick asked. "She called him her brother?" "Yeah," I said, just like that. Middle of the night, comes crawling out of the wall. Boom. Stepbrother. Rick leaned back, eyes hard. "That's not just cheating," he said. "That's something worse. She knew who he was. She knew exactly what she was doing." I nodded slowly. The pieces had already been spinning in my head. But hearing it aloud, confirmed, laid out like evidence in court, it hit different. I stared down at the table. "There's one thing I still don't get," I said quietly. "Why him? Why that guy? No money, no job, a fraud conviction, when she already had a home, a family, me." Rick let out a slow breath, then shrugged. "That's not for me to answer. People fall for reasons they don't even understand themselves. And sometimes, it's not love at all." I looked away. Not love. That thought hit harder than everything else combined. It didn't even have to be love, just not love. Just something else. And I had no idea how deep it went. I told Megan I was going night fishing with Rick. Said he'd been dropping hints for weeks, missing the old days, just the two of us out on the lake. Told her I'd be staying at his place overnight. She didn't hide her excitement. If anything, she agreed too quickly. "That's perfect," she said. "You need a break." I could hear the smile in her voice as she hung up. Could almost picture her already pouring the wine. Already lighting candles in her mind. She had no idea. There was no fishing trip. I was parked a few blocks from the house, phone in my lap, live stream pulled up from all 5 cameras. A private show starring my wife and the man she called her stepbrother. At first, nothing. Kitchen cam. Megan laid out a cutting board with cheese. He was slicing vegetables. They laughed. Her voice was light, almost tipsy, not from alcohol, but from him. "I knew you'd mess up the goat cheese," she giggled, brushing crumbs off the counter with her fingertip. "Then teach me how to do it right," he said, leaning in. Their lips met. She didn't pull away. She leaned into it, smiled. Living room cam, my couch, my wine. The bottle I'd been saving for something special. Megan's birthday, Susan's thesis defense, our anniversary. Guess this was a special occasion, too. "Finally, some peace without him," Tom said, sprawling across the cushions like he owned the place. He never suspects a thing, Megan said, taking off her earrings. He's too good, too boring, too predictable. You're incredible, Tom told her, pouring wine into 2 glasses. I'd be dead without you. I had to disappear. If it wasn't for you, the agency would have gotten to me by now. Agency? I froze. Is this bastard serious? How bad is it? Megan asked, her tone shifting. A hint of fear, maybe for the first time. After the last op, he whispered, squeezing her hand. It all went sideways. I had to improvise. There was no extraction. After that, I disappeared. Fully off-grid. No badge, no cover. I'm not part of the agency anymore, but the secret's still with me. She climbed into his lap, kissed him long, hungry, her hands around his neck. I watched, numb. Not just betrayal, not just humiliation, disappointment. She believed him. Some cartoon-level spy bullshit from a man who hid behind drywall and ate dinner off our wedding china. And she compared me to him. And I lost. Why me? She asked quietly, pulling away just enough to speak. I saw you at the grocery store, he said, helping some old woman grab a can of peas off the top shelf. You looked like someone I could trust. I told myself, either she saves me or she turns me in. I took the risk. I remember thinking you weren't like other men, she whispered. The way you looked at me, not like Bill? He always looks at me with expectation. You looked at me like someone with a story. I have a story, he said darkly, sipping wine. A long, twisted one. Then he asked, You think your husband suspects anything? He hears me say I'm tired and never asks why, Megan said. It's just work, dinner, holidays, fishing trips. Everything's so safe, so boring. With you, it's different. You deserve different, he murmured. You weren't made for a quiet life. I sat in my car, parked in the dark, phone glowing in my hands, and I didn't feel pain. I felt ice, 20 years of marriage, a shared house, a daughter, a life built piece by piece. Destroyed in one evening, a few glasses of wine, and one pathetic story about spy missions and secret ops. Turns out adrenaline and fantasy meant more than the life we built. Fine. She made her choice. Now it was my turn. I called Rick. I've got an idea, I said. I need your help. You got it, he replied. No hesitation in his voice. They're gonna pay for everything. The next day, I was parked in a van 3 houses down from our place. Fresh coffee in one hand, my phone in the other, screen glowing in front of me. Kitchen, living room, hallway, bedroom, every room covered, every angle watched. 2 p.m. Megan appeared in the kitchen, hair tied back, frying pan in hand. She moved with that usual practiced rhythm, opened a cabinet, grabbed the oil, set it on the counter, ordinary, mechanical. Once, I used to love watching her cook like this. Sometimes she'd hum to herself. Now I watched like a director waiting for the final act to start. She didn't know the curtain was about to fall. Living room, Cam, Tom, in socks, legs up on my coffee table, beer in hand, TV on, like he owned the place. My fists clenched instinctively. The clown and that leech had made himself at home through the smallest crack in trust. And right on cue, sirens. From the exterior feed, I watched 2 squad cars roll in, sirens screaming from opposite ends of the street. 2 officers in full uniform, one more in a jacket with bold white letters across the back. FBI. He wasn't Bureau, of course, just a friend of Rick's, a solid guy, ex-military, who owed him a favor. It was all a setup. Every move scripted, every line rehearsed. They looked real, so real even I felt a spike in my chest. Inside the house, Megan moved into the hallway, phone and bottle of cooking oil in hand, peering nervously through the glass. Frozen. Then, she turned toward the living room. Tom, there's cops outside. Tom stood up slowly, still holding his beer, muttering something like, that can't be right. But he didn't get the chance to finish. One officer raised a hand and the door exploded off its hinges. Federal Bureau of Investigation, the fake agent bellowed. Down on the floor, face down, hands behind your head. Tom dropped his beer. Foam exploded down his shirt. He stumbled backward, tripped over the rug, and hit the floor hard, arms splayed like a squashed bug. The FBI agent stepped inside, gun pointed straight. Richard Stanton, you're under arrest for suspicion of treason and collaboration with foreign intelligence agencies, Tom gasped. I'm not, he stammered. But the officers were already on him, hands locked, arms twisted. "We know you've been hiding under a false identity," the agent continued. "You've been burned. You've been outed. We have the warrant. Your cover is blown." One cop shoved his face down, pinning him to the hardwood. Tom squirmed. And then he howled, not a scream, a howl, a pathetic broken sound like a kick dog. "I'm not an agent," he sobbed. "I'm not. I made it up. I lied. My name's not Richard. It's Jonathan Mills. I'm nobody. Please." The cops yanked him to his feet. A dark stain bloomed across the front of his pants. He'd pissed himself. "Please," he whimpered again, lips trembling. Megan stood a few feet away, stunned, her hands still up. The bottle of oil slipped from her grip and rolled under the cabinet. "What did you just say?" she asked, voice cracking. "You lied to me?" "I made it all up," Tom choked. "I lost my business, my house. I was sleeping in basements." And then she snapped, like a detonation. She kicked him hard in the ribs. One of the cops tried to hold her back, but she elbowed him off. "You ruined my life!" she screamed, voice shredded, feral. I thought you were a hero, and you're just a pathetic piece of shit." She grabbed a vase from the fireplace, hurled it, missed. It shattered against the wall. And I sat there in my van, elbows on my knees, watching it all unfold, and laughing hard, deep, honest. The kind of laugh you don't fake. The kind that pulls from somewhere buried. I didn't need anything else. Her tears, his wet pants, her meltdown, his pathetic sobbing, their perfect little romance shattered in the ugliest, loudest, most humiliating way possible. It was everything I wanted. Cleansing, final, revenge, and God, it was beautiful. "Get him up," one of the cops said quietly. The other waved him off. "I got it." Tom trembled as he forced himself upright. His pants sagged, soaked dark under the window's light. His face was pale, his eyes glassy. He didn't resist, didn't speak. He just stood there, motionless, taking it all like a dog too tired to fight anymore. One of the officers stepped closer, looked him over with a crooked smirk. "Look at that, boys. A real-life secret agent." The other chuckled. "Yeah, maybe for the sewer department." A few dry laughs followed. No cruelty behind them, no sympathy either, just the tired sarcasm of men who'd seen too much, who didn't feel much anymore. The FBI agent snapped the handcuffs open once for show, then turned and walked out first. The cops followed, quiet. No shouting, no threats, just the faint trail of sweat, metal, and shame left behind. The door shut behind them. Tom was still standing in the middle of the room. His bare foot stepped into the puddle of spilled beer. He looked down at it, then at himself. His shoulders sagged. "Megan," he said softly, "can I just, please? Let me change my pants. I can't go out like this. She stared up at him, slowly, from his wet feet to his broken face. Her eyes were burning. "You're really asking me for pants?" He nodded, ashamed. She stepped toward him, eyes glowing with something deeper than rage, something cold and carved from ruin. "I threw away a man like Bill because of you," she hissed. "A good man, a faithful man, a man who loved me. I threw everything away, my home, my life, for you." She shoved him in the chest, hard. He staggered, but didn't fall. "You're asking me for pants?" Tom raised his hands in surrender. Not to fight, just to try and shield himself from what was coming. "Megan, please! You're asking me for pants?" she screamed, grabbing a ceramic vase from the side table and hurling it at the wall beside his head. It exploded into white shards. "You're nothing!" He didn't say a word, just dropped his gaze. "Get out!" she whispered. Her voice was small now, cracked, wrecked. "Just get out of my house. Don't ever come back. But no more words. Just go." Tom moved slowly to the coat rack, slipped on his jacket, looked around the kitchen like he was trying to understand what had just happened. Then he opened the door and walked out. It closed behind him with a soft click. Megan was alone. She slid down to the floor next to the broken cabinet, buried her face in her hands, and cried. Not the way they do in movies, not graceful, not pretty. She sobbed. Ugly, guttural mascara streaked down her cheeks. She choked on it. Her chest heaved. And I just sat there, in the van, finishing my cold coffee, watching the screen. No music, no applause. Just the end of the performance. And silence. I woke up on Rick's guest couch. His place always smelled like fresh coffee and wood. Something from the old furniture, varnish, calm. It was quiet here. No footsteps in the walls, no lies whispering in the dark. Just silence. For the first time in weeks, it didn't feel heavy. It felt like medicine, like air I didn't have to fight for. There was a folder on the table. Rick had already taken care of everything. No questions, no lectures, just a short note in his clean block handwriting. Did what you asked. Courier's coming at 9:30. At 9:17, I was on the porch with a mug of coffee, watching a gray sedan pull up to the curb. The man who stepped out wore a dark overcoat, moved with military precision. Didn't speak much. Didn't have to. I handed him the envelope and gave a nod. She's Megan Stewart. She'll be home. Just deliver it. No explanations. He returned the nod. Understood. And the car rolled away. I went back inside, poured another cup, pulled a blanket around me like some old man, and sat in Rick's big armchair and waited. The phone rang at exactly 10:05. Megan. I didn't answer. 2 minutes later. Again. Megan. I hit decline and flipped the phone face down on the table. 10 minutes passed. Another call, then another. Then the texts started. Megan. Bill, please talk to me. Megan. We can explain everything. Megan. It's not what you think. Megan. I made a mistake. I know that now. Megan. You can't just... Megan, please. I read none of them. Just kept the phone flipped and the world quiet. At 11:32, it rang again. Megan. This time I answered, but I didn't say a word. Bill? Bill, is that you? Her voice was wrecked, hoarse. I didn't answer. I got the papers. You're serious? Silence. You really want to end it like this? After everything? After everything we had? More silence. I could hear her breathing, short, shaky, like she was holding something in that wanted to break loose. Bill, I know I ruined it. I know I did, but please don't go quiet. Say something. Say anything. I looked out the window. It was raining. The kind of soft rain that doesn't rush. It just falls slow like it's mourning something. Drops clinging to the branches outside, waiting, then finally letting go. Then I spoke. I already lost everything. And I hung up. The hearing started at 9 a.m., District Court of Haven County. Courtroom 4. Case of Stewart versus Stewart, hearing on divorce, asset division, and, as noted in the petition, possible spousal support, Judge Edward Mallow said, his voice dry and flat, the kind that made everything sound less emotional, like that was his job, to drain emotion from chaos. Are both parties present? Present, Your Honor, said my attorney, Ray Decker. Respondent, Mr. William Stewart, is present. And the petitioner, Mrs. Megan Stewart, came the smooth, almost sugary voice of her lawyer, Angela Venton. Also present. I sat next to Ray, calm, collected, wearing the same blue suit I wore to Susan's dissertation defense. I had prepared for this, waited for it. Even when Megan walked in wearing a light beige dress and a soft cashmere wrap, I didn't flinch. Judge Mallow looked over his files. Miss Venton, you filed a motion for temporary support. Are you moving forward with that request? Yes, Your Honor. My client is vulnerable in a financially unstable position. We're requesting temporary financial assistance, at least until final judgment. This is a marriage with no minor children, Ray spoke up smoothly. And as of the divorce filing, neither party claimed pregnancy. That's actually what I wanted to address, Megan said suddenly, standing. All heads turned. Your Honor, she said, hand pressed against her chest, voice trembling. I just found out I'm pregnant. I'm carrying twins. The room froze for a second. I didn't blink, didn't even breathe heavy. Ray leaned toward me and whispered, She just nuked the case. Judge Mallow raised his eyebrows. You're claiming to be pregnant at the time of this hearing? Yes, she nodded quickly. 13 weeks. I have medical documentation. And the father? She turned toward me. It's Bill, Mr. Stewart. I smiled. Not smug, not cruel, just calm, like someone who already knew the punchline. I pressed the mic. Your Honor, I'd like to clarify something. The judge nodded. I had a vasectomy 5 years ago. I am medically unable to father children. I have documentation. The surgical report, post-op analysis, and a letter from my urologist. Silence again. Megan stood frozen in place, fists clenched, cheeks flushed. Miracles happen, she muttered, voice raw. Maybe this is one of them. I sighed, slowly, tired. Not in your case, Megan. Objection! Her attorney shouted, rising to her feet. That's inappropriate and demeaning. It's a fact, Ray cut in coolly. We're also requesting an immediate court order for DNA testing, and we ask that the motion for temporary support be denied until results are confirmed. Judge Mallow slowly flipped through the paperwork, then looked back at Megan. Mrs. Stewart, anything else? She swayed. I'm overwhelmed. This is an attack. I feel lightheaded. She touched her forehead, wobbled. Her lawyer caught her by the elbow, and then Megan collapsed. Not dramatically, not gracefully, just sank to the floor like her bones gave up. She's fainting, Venton yelled. The court nurse, already standing by, rushed over, knelt beside her, checked her pulse. She's breathing, the nurse said calmly. Looks like a panic attack. Give her some air. Your Honor, we request a short recess. My client is in distress. She's got twins in her head, not her uterus, I muttered under my breath, without even standing. The judge looked at me, and for the first time that morning, I swear, his mouth twitched, almost a smile. I'll allow a 15-minute recess, he said, after which the court will rule on the DNA test and the temporary support request. I stood up and walked into the hallway. Ray followed right behind. She really thought you'd swallow that? He said under his breath. Maybe she was hoping for a miracle, I said. Ray cracked his neck, rolled his shoulders. Well, let's go grind her fairy tale into dust. Judge Mallow returned right on time. We all stood. Megan was already seated, her face pale, eyes fixed on the floor. Her lawyer, Angela Venton, leaned in close, whispering something into her ear. Megan just nodded, silent and hollow. I sat back down next to Ray. He looked over and gave me the smallest smile. It was enough. The court is back in session, Mallow announced. Mrs. Stewart, are you feeling better? Yes, Your Honor, she replied quietly, her voice barely holding together. It's just emotions. Let's try to keep emotions out of it moving forward, the judge said, dry but firm. Now, to the matter at hand. He opened the folder in front of him and laid out the documents, the surgical report, the follow-up tests, everything Ray had submitted in advance. After reviewing the medical records, this court acknowledges the respondent's documented claim of infertility following a vasectomy, supported by surgical and clinical evidence. Given this, the court finds it necessary to order a DNA test of the embryonic material as soon as it becomes medically viable. Do you consent to this testing, Mrs. Stewart? Megan swallowed. That's humiliating. It's the law, Judge Mallow interrupted, flat as stone. The court cannot consider any request for spousal support without confirming paternity. If you claim Mr. Stewart is the father, you'll need to prove it. She looked at me. Her voice cracked. I didn't expect this from you, Bill. I leaned into the mic. I didn't expect you to lie about children, but here we are. Judge Mallow banged the gavel once. No emotion, please. Venton jumped in. Your Honor, my client is in a vulnerable state. The pressure being applied here, if she needs medical attention, she can go to a clinic. The judge cut her off. Still even. In this courtroom, we deal with facts. A DNA test is a standard request. If Mr. Stewart is not the father, this claim for support is dismissed. If he is, he'll be obligated under the law. We agreed to the test, Venton finally said. Megan turned to her so fast, her scarf shifted off her shoulder. What? We agree, Venton repeated firmer. Otherwise, we get nothing. Megan covered her face with both hands, sat there a second, then hissed through her fingers. You all just want to destroy me. I leaned into the mic again. No, I just don't want you to profit from what you did to me. Her eyes snapped up, glinting, wet. I gave you 20 years of my life. You don't get them back. Same as you don't get my trust. Enough, Mallow said, sharp now. You speak again out of turn and I'll have you removed. This court is not a stage for Shakespeare. Everything said here is on the record. Megan clenched her fists, stared down again. She was losing, and she knew it. The court will also consider the motion regarding asset division, Judge Mallow continued. The respondent has submitted evidence that the guest house where the plaintiff's alleged relative resided was not used for its intended purpose. The court accepts video surveillance footage indicating a third party was cohabiting inside the main residence, not the registered guest space. Megan closed her eyes, let out a breath. This is humiliating. Bill, please, do you really want to destroy me like this? I turned toward her for the first time, looked her straight in the eyes, not with hatred, just done. I don't want to destroy you, Megan. I just want this to be over. Judge Mallow wrapped it up. DNA testing is ordered. Until results are received, the request for temporary financial support is suspended. The matter of property division will be revisited at a future hearing. This session is adjourned. Gavel. We all stood. Megan stayed seated until Venton gently touched her shoulder. She stood slowly, like something inside her had broken. Maybe it had. I walked out first, past her, past the benches, past everything we used to be. Ray caught up with me in the hallway. Well, he said, coffee? No, I replied. I just want silence. He nodded. Then let's be quiet. We stepped outside. It was sunny. The air was sharp, clean. It hit my face like freedom. I inhaled deep. 3 weeks later, in that same courtroom, Judge Edward Mallow read the final decision in his flat, practiced voice. No surprises. Marriage is dissolved. DNA test did not establish paternity. Request for spousal support denied. Primary residence awarded to Mrs. Stewart as per property title. This court is adjourned. One last strike of the gavel, like the last nail in a coffin. That was it. Megan didn't look at me. I didn't look for her eyes either. I just stood up and walked out. But that wasn't the end. 30 minutes later, Ray and I were sitting at the cafe on Pine and 3rd. It smelled like fresh coffee, fried eggs, and warm vanilla rolls. Outside the window, fall leaves twisted in the wind. It was autumn, the end of things. Well, Ray said, sipping his coffee. That's it. That's it, I echoed, watching the leaves. No support. House stays with her, sure, but you're free. I'm divorced, I said, with a blank slate. Said with just a touch of sarcasm. Ray smirked. Just a sober view of the world, I replied. The bell over the door rang behind me and Ray's gaze froze. I turned almost instinctively. Megan. She walked in slowly, wearing a plain navy coat, hair pulled back. No fire in her eyes. No shame either, just fatigue. Can I sit? She asked softly. Ray looked at me. I gave a nod. He stood and left the table, not without hesitation, but politely. She sat across from me, didn't ask for a menu, didn't order coffee. I didn't know how else to talk to you, she said. I thought maybe you disappeared. I didn't disappear, I said. I just closed a door that should have been closed a long time ago. She swallowed. Her fingers gripped the edge of the table. Do we still have a chance? No. But we've been through so much. Not anymore. A pause. Her eyes glistened. Do you hate me? No. She looked down, then back up. Barely. That's worse, she whispered. Because I deserve to be hated, and you just look right through me. I held her gaze, not with pity, not with anger, just truth. I used to look at you like you were my life, I said. Now I look at you like a stranger. And you know what, Megan? That's okay. She stood up slowly, held my eyes one last time. Take care of yourself, Bill. You too, Megan. She walked out, no words, no backward glance. Not long after, I got the news. Something sad had happened to Megan. It happened about a month later. Susan and I were sitting at the old wooden table in Rick's kitchen, drinking tea with honey. She insisted, no coffee, no wine, just tea. Said sometimes you have to let life settle without speeding it up. Her phone lay face down on the table. She hadn't said much, but I could see something weighing on her. She called, Susan finally said. A few days ago. I looked up. And? She said she doesn't go out, that she can't sleep, that she just sits in silence most nights. I nodded. And you? I listened, and I didn't say much. Then I told her I was sorry, but I can't be her daughter anymore. She looked at me, her eyes glassy. It hurts, Dad, having a mother and feeling like she's a stranger now, and still sometimes I answer. I don't even know why. Maybe just because she's part of me. She knows that, I said quietly. And you? She asked. I haven't seen her since. Do you want to? I took a sip of tea, set the mug down. Let out a slow breath. It's not that I don't want to. There's just no reason to. What we had, it can't be rebuilt. Susan pressed her lips together. She said Tom disappeared. Never came back. No texts, nothing. Just gone. She lost her children, Susan said quietly, eyes cast down. I didn't speak for a few seconds. Then I said just above a whisper, that was her choice. She couldn't have raised them on her own. I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, they're still children. That was her choice, I said again, calm, steady. And she answered for it. Not me. Not you. Susan wrapped her hands around her mug. She's being evicted. I know, I said. Hasn't paid property taxes for months. The house is being seized. She's moving into a rented room. She destroyed her own future, I said. The moment she started lying. Susan looked at me for a long time. You don't feel sorry for her? No, and I don't feel bad about that. There's no honor and pity when someone burns everything you built together. She hesitated. Did you ever love her? She asked, her voice small. Love doesn't mean you have to forgive everything. That's hard to hear. It's even harder to live. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, the leaves whispered against the windows. Autumn was settling in, slow and final. Susan stood, walked over to me, wrapped her arms around my shoulders, rested her forehead against mine. I'm proud of you, Dad. I closed my eyes. And I'm proud of you,